Do you ever stop and think about seemingly random, weird stuff? There's something that I've thought about, a couple of things that I've thought about for quite some time. Cows and birds. First of all, I want to talk about cows. And you may or may not have noticed, whenever you drive past cows in a field, they almost all seem to be facing the same direction. Not every single cow, but the vast majority of cows are all facing the same direction. And actually, it kind of reminded me of, I don't know if you have any nautical experience, but if you've ever been by the sea or by a lake and you've seen boats moored, not docked at a pier, but moored offshore. And if there's no wind, the boats will be oriented in kind of random positions. But when there comes a wind, then all the boats align so their prow, the bow, the front part of the boat is facing into the wind. They're all aligned like that. And so when I drive past a herd of cows, they remind me of these little boats. They're all pretty much facing the same direction. I used to think, why is that? I'm sure the cows didn't wake up one morning and said, hey guys, let's make sure we all face east-northeast today, So why would they do that? And of course, nowadays, in the age of the internet, it's relatively easier to ask these, silly, what probably most people would consider silly questions. But to me, it's just, I'm curious. So I think about these things. It seems that there's perhaps a couple of theories about why cows tend to face all in the same direction, and cows in any given herd. And one theory is that it's a herd instinct kind of thing, protection from predators and all that kind of stuff. Okay, that's possible, I suppose. I mean, I'm no bovine expert, but at least on the surface it sounds feasible. But then there's another explanation, and actually this one is backed up by some evidence that this hypothesis was backed up by studying some Google Earth images, actually. And the hypothesis is that somehow the cows are more or less aligning with the magnetic field running north-south. And like I said, they've studied the Google Earth images over, looking at cow herds from the satellite. And this is evidently a thing with cows. It's a widespread phenomenon, which is kind of crazy if you stop and think about it. But, and I tend to think that the magnetic field thing is perhaps more feasible, or it sounds more plausible, I guess, to me. Because if you stop and think about it, they say that's how birds navigate too. Birds fly thousands of miles, like from Canada down to the Gulf or that kind of stuff. And how do they navigate? Obviously, they don't have GPS or anything like that. But they think that it's somehow that the bird somehow uses the magnetic field as part of its navigation. So I think that could be very plausible that the cows have some kind of similar, not mechanism, but some kind of similar ability to do that. And so for whatever reason, they all kind of align more or less in the same direction in the same field. Why they would do that, that's just if it's the magnetic thing, that's just the how, but it doesn't really answer the why. So, I don't know, but it's just a curious observation. See, for me, I tend to observe and notice things, and then it's like, really? Huh. I wonder why that is. So that's the kind of thing that's running through my mind. So maybe if there are any farmers or other bovine experts, maybe you can chip in and maybe you have an explanation. But yeah, I think probably the magnetic field explanation is probably most plausible in my estimation, but I'm no biologist, okay? And still I would like to know, okay, that might be how they align, but why? So that question is still unanswered as far as I can tell. Okay, the other thing that I think about from time to time, and actually this may sound crazy, but I've wondered about this for like almost 40 years. But if you've ever watched birds, you will probably have noticed that, or maybe you noticed without realizing it, but some birds walk and other birds hop. And if you pay careful attention, it's usually the little birds like sparrows or chickadees or that kind of thing. They hop, 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 hop. Like when they're on the ground looking for grass or bugs or seeds or whatever. They hop, hop, hop. And then larger birds like crows or vultures or obviously ducks, most other birds, larger birds, they walk. They don't hop. And I don't know exactly what the cutoff is, but I would say probably about robin size. Because if you've ever seen robins, sometimes they hop and sometimes they walk. Sometimes they actually kind of almost like walk really fast, like not quite running, but yeah. So robins are kind of like either or. So I think that's probably the cutoff. But I used to wonder, why would smaller birds hop? I can understand walking. Now, one fundamental premise that I'm operating under is that nature likes efficiency. Sentient beings in nature, animals and fish and whatever, they're going to take the path of least resistance, so to speak. They're not going to expend extra energy if they don't have to. So I would assume that birds are no different. They want to conserve as much energy as possible, especially like a smaller bird. Because if you think about like a percentage of weight kind of thing, the smaller bird, it's more crucial for that small animal or that small bird to save energy compared to a larger animal like a crow or vulture or something like that. So I said, well, okay, why do they hop? Because I was thinking, wouldn't hopping require more energy? Why would they do that? So I used to think about these things. And why do they hop? Why don't they walk? So I looked it up online, and the explanation that I found was that, and see, I've wondered about this for years but I never knew any ornithologist. So before the internet, had nobody to ask. But now I have the internet, so I looked it up. It's starting to rain, so I better finish up here. Anyways, the smaller birds, it's for the smaller birds, they have shorter legs, which is a duh, right? But they have shorter legs, they have stronger muscles, and for them, hopping is more efficient because one hop can be the equivalent of several steps. So my assumption that hopping required more energy wasn't quite accurate. It might require more energy, but it results in fewer actions. So that's where the energy efficiency comes in. So, and other things that they mentioned was that the hopping is is an easier method of mobility if you consider like being in the dense forest, like around here. There's no open plains of grass or anything like that. So dense areas like forests or rocky terrain, for example, it's easier for the small birds to maneuver by hopping around here and there instead of trying to walk. So that would be an advantage. So the walking birds like robins or hawks or whatever, that tends to be in more open places. Pigeons, for example, you think about, you see them in the city, right? And that's open. It's not confined like in a forest. It's evidently more energy efficient for the smaller birds to hop. They have the leg muscles. They can hop farther than, one hop is farther than one stride for their walking. So that makes sense. And going from branch to branch or whatever, that's easier for them. But the cons is that evidently that sometimes it might be harder for them to escape predators. And I mean, that's according to what I read. But that doesn't quite make sense to me, because you think if you're a bird, you can just fly away unless it's another predator flying, like a larger bird chasing a smaller bird. So maybe there, I don't know. Yeah, so I've wondered that for quite some time. Oops. Yeah, I wondered that for quite some time, so now I at least have the answer. Don't quite have the answer to the cow thing. Why is it that cows all tend to face the same direction? And I find that very curious. Why would they do that? But at least I have a better answer for the thing about the hopping birds. Anyways, that's just me. I'm weird. I think about these things, and I venture to say most people don't even give a second thought. They probably don't even notice some of these things. But anyways, that's all I have for today. What about you? Have you noticed about the cows, how they all go in the same direction? Do you have any explanation, or what do you think? And yeah, how about, do you have any weird questions that you wonder about? So it'll be interesting to hear some of the things that go through people's minds. So hope you found this informative or entertaining, at least, knowing how weird I can be. So yeah, if you like it, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe, please. That would help me to grow this channel. And share with a friend. And I'll talk at you later. Bye.